Good morning, Austin. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day today. Doing a rare early morning podcast because opportunity to get Jodie on. Pretty excited about that. How's it going today, Jodie?
Amazing. So good.
So why don't you maybe start off just a little bit by seeing yourself, who you are, and yeah, we can go from there.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on this. My name is Jodie King, and I have been a professional artist for over 20 years now. And I have a company, Jodie King Media, and our primary goal is to help artists globally appreciate who they are and the service that they provide to the world, while at the same time helping them make money doing what they love, putting that whole starving artist thing to bed once and for all.
Nice. Yeah, it's the art world and just the creative world is a kind of at an interesting time, I feel like, in where we're at just with different social media stuff and just all the different technologies that are coming about. It's just a really interesting time for artists in general.
For sure. There was a time where the only feasible way for artists to make a living doing what they love was through the gallery system. And because, as you said, because of there's so many opportunities for artists to be seen now, especially through social media and various other things, it's a game changer for artists. So the idea that you have to be poor or have a plan B or like that in order to be able to do what you love is those days are over. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't know how to run a business, right? Because that's the key is we used to just be able to hand our art over to a gallery and not have to worry so much about the business side of it. But unfortunately, galleries take 50% of the profits. And so if we do know how to sell our own art through various different means. Art consultants, there's actually four times as many interior designers as there are galleries, gift stores, and just so many different things. Our own email list, like I said, social media, there's so many different avenues for artists to sell their work without having to give away 50% of the profits.
Yeah, like commission work seems like it's becoming more and more common and not something that's just for ultra wealthy kind of people as well too. And nowadays too, not that you couldn't still go through art galleries, but so much of life and commerce especially is more direct to your client that if you're going that route, you're missing out because there's other artists that are doing it through being on Instagram, being on TikTok, being on YouTube that are building their audience, and people are finding them that way because people aren't necessarily going to art galleries to shop for art per se as much as they did 20, 30 years ago.
Oh, for sure. And one of the challenges that I feel I've worked with over 6,000 artists globally. And one of the challenges that I find is artists actually valuing themselves first, what they do in the world, because it's not going to be the opposite. We're not all of a sudden going to go, oh, the entire world is now going to see our value and now we can make money. It has to start with the artists themselves truly believing that what they have to bring to the world is valuable. And when you think about historically the role that art has played, it's pretty profound. We know about like history through hieroglyphics, right? That was the first art that we can really appreciate for what it brought to the world. So we did that. And then if you think about music and how music validates the human experience, we're right now, especially, we are so disconnected and we are craving connection, but just through music and art, we are able to have our experience validated. I like to say, would we even know how to have sex without Marvin Gaye? Think of the value that he brought to the world. And just visual artists, the work that we can create and how it changes an entire space. I was just talking to some artists yesterday. I have a program called Studio Elite with artists, and they were talking about how she was having to move her mother into an assisted living. She has dementia, and she's going from this house that she's been in her whole life into this little room with a twin size bed. And they are thinking, what is it that they can do? And my own experience is that if you bring art into that space, art that they are familiar with, art that has consoled them and makes them feel comfortable their whole life. If you bring art into that space, it has a profound effect on that patient's mental health. So there's so many different ways that art An artist can bring value to the world, but it has to start with us knowing our own personal value.
Yeah, and it's one of those where every person, quite frankly, has that bit of imposter syndrome that they feel when they first start any type of thing, right? Whether you're starting out as a real estate agent, whether you're starting out as an artist. And so, like, it's natural to feel that, but a lot of times people don't talk about that. It's natural to feel that. But if you don't value your own self and what you can bring to the table as in any type of field, then why is the person on the other side going to value what you have to bring?
100%. And artists tend to think as soon as somebody wants a piece of their art, they're like, oh, I'll you just take it, or I'll give you 50% off, or I'll give you 20% off. But we have to change that. We have to change that mindset because it's like, why would anybody want something that I created with my bare hands? Like we really do. I'm so glad you brought that up because imposter syndrome is real.
Yeah. So maybe go back a little bit of your origin story. Obviously, most people aren't originally from Austin, Texas. And so it's always interesting to hear people's origin stories of where they came from. And even sometimes more interesting if they actually are originally here from Austin, because that seems to be so rare.
Yeah, I wish I was born and raised in Austin, but I had the next best thing. I grew up in South Louisiana. So I'm a Cajun girl and with everything that brings. But when I was in my mid 20s, I headed out with my starter husband to Fredericksburg and lived in Fredericksburg for years, for I want to say 13 years. Loved it out there. Had my children out there. I was in Austin often because a little town, you got to go to the big city. So I think I was here at least once a month for all that time. So Austin really feels very personal to me. But then in 2005, I moved to Austin myself with my daughters, and I couldn't wait to get here. Austin just has that amazing vibe. And I know people talk about it's losing some of it. I really feel like the people here are just as awesome as they ever were. There's a great level of acceptance. There's a great art community. Excuse me. And I've always loved Austin. And then I moved away for about 10 years and got back here as soon as I could. So I've been back since 2018. And yeah, I just love it. I don't think there's any place like Austin.
Yeah, it's definitely obviously changed, right? I've been here almost 18 years. And so you go down South Lamar, South First Street, even downtown, like all those things, there's definitely a lot of difference. And I can understand why people feel like, oh, it's not to keep Austin weird and losing some of its charm. But things are always going to change. Like, nothing really stays static. So, you can see things grow and improve, hopefully, or decay. And so you'd much rather see things blossoming and growing. And say, I think in my experience, I believe one of the big things that makes it such a great place for the people, it's like the American thing too, is like people who are willing to leave Europe and go sail across an ocean for however many weeks or months that took them to do and come to America centuries ago. That takes a certain kind of person, right? And same kind of thing now, although it's easier to move across the country or across the state, but it still generally takes someone who is willing to have that sense of adventure, have that sense of wanting to try something new and different. And so then it leads to a lot of people that have that similar mindset, which I think is a really cool part of the fabric and culture of Austin.
Oh, 100%. In fact, some of my dearest friends, one of them is, I won't say her name, Austin true and true native. Her family has contributed immensely to Austin, to the University of Texas athletics, all kinds of things. You would know if I knew or said her name, so I won't. But the my other dear friends are from California. So they've moved here in the last 10 years, but the spirit of who they are, and like you said, why they love Austin is the same. We're all here for similar reasons.
So you mentioned growing up in South Louisiana. What kind of got you into art and stuff? Was it something from a young age that was always a part of your life, or when did that kind of spark hit?
That's such a good question. Art was never a part of my life. The kids that are drawing and wanting to be an artist when they grew up and all of that was never me. In fact, in third grade is when I decided I'm absolutely not an artist because the art teacher was bringing around clay and putting little blobs of clay in front of all of us. And the instructions were to create a mushroom. And so we were going to form a mushroom, then we were going to paint it, and then she was going to fire it in the kiln and then bring it back to us the next week. I was making my mushroom and I had a little bit of clay left over. And so I rolled the little leftover clay into little balls, and then I put the little balls on top of the mushroom. I've got now a red mushroom with little white balls on top of it, and send it off. And then the next week, the teacher comes back and is putting all of the mushrooms in front of us. And then she goes down the table and says, "Good job, Danny, with this one. And love your color here, Susie." I don't even know the names. But then it came to me, and she put the mushroom in front of me. And the only thing she said is, "Jodie, those balls were not part of the assignment." And in that moment,
Okay,
I
true. Yeah.
right? And in that moment, I decided I'm not an artist. Now I know she's just a wretched human being.
Or she just wasn't, and again, and growing up in a small town as well too, right? Like it wasn't like you had to choose your teachers in a lot of different classes. Like this is your teacher for said class, right? That's just who you got. And like I can think specifically in like some math classes of teachers who actually were really good mathematicians, but couldn't explain. Like for me, I got math pretty easily, so it wasn't a problem. But for a lot of the other students, they didn't, and so he could do a math problem so quickly that he would skip these steps that someone as a 10th grader needed to figure it out. And it's the same thing with art, right? Like once you realize that art's how you want it, like again, if you're doing a commission piece for someone and they have some guidelines for you, you do have to follow what they're looking for. You can't just be like, "Nope, I'm an artist, so I decided to completely make something different." Like, that's not going to work there. But art is expression and creativity and those kind of things. And so that's definitely an odd thing to say to a third grader at that point in time.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't pick up art again until I was 35. And then one day I was with a big group of people. We were actually out in the hill country, and we all got together for New Year's Eve. And so now it's New Year's morning and we're having that discussion. What do you want to do this year? And so people were saying, "I want to exercise," like all the different things. And it came around to me, and I haven't picked up a paintbrush in, I don't know, since I was maybe in third grade. It came around to me, and just out of the blue, I said, "You know what? I want to paint." And there was a guy there that was an artist, and he goes, "So paint." And I go, "No, I don't know how to paint." And he said, "Just paint." And I really had never considered that I could just paint. And this was before YouTube. So it wasn't going to be that easy to just paint, in my opinion. And so I said, "I don't even know where to start." And he said, "Go to the art supply store, get some brushes and some paint, and just paint." So that's where it started. And when I look back on it and I think, okay, what was that about? It was what I think so many of us deal with. And that is, I had young children at the time. It was a really busy time in my life of giving to others, not sleeping, always helping others. And painting was just something for me. It was something that served me. And I just, as soon as I started painting, I was absolutely hooked. It was, now I know that there's something that happens to our own mind, and it's almost like a meditative state. It's an incredibly healing thing to do, especially if you're creating what I call honest art. And I have a whole thing about honest art, but honest art is the art that we're not looking at other people's art to emulate. And artists love looking at other people's art, by the way. We love it.
Society likes looking at other people and making assumptions and comparisons. So that's not an artist specific thing at all.
For sure. But artists tend to want to make art like other art they love. So it's totally normal to do that. I've done it. Honest art is where you just start to trust yourself and trust whatever needs to come out of you, your own curiosity, whatever is wanting to be birthed, you trust that. And even Matisse said, "It has bothered me my whole life that I don't paint like other people." So it is inherent for us, like you said, to look at others and compare ourselves, and especially for. So I started doing that. I started painting, and our little bungalow that was out in Fredericksburg, that was built in 1914. We were asked to put it on a tour of homes because it was so cute and was remodeled. And I put some of those paintings that I had been painting on the wall just to clean up, just because I honestly couldn't afford my
You don't want to paint the whole place. I'm like, some art that'll cover some of the spots or some of the, some different things. That'll be good.
Absolutely. And truly, I couldn't afford to buy original art. And one of the women that came through the tour owned a store in Fredericksburg, owned a gift shop, and she asked if she could start carrying my art in her gift shop. And then that was it. And I realized, oh, I could actually do this. I could sell my art. And I used a lot of my other entrepreneurial experience. And just all of a sudden, I became a professional artist.
Very nice. Yeah, it reminds me, there's a story that I don't know how truthful it is because I've heard it in a few different variations, but it's about like a college professor in photography talking about setting one half of his students and telling them you need to do like a picture, you need to create a photograph a day. That's your assignment for the semester. And the other half of the class was you need to create, or one half was you need to create the most number of pictures possible, the most number of photographs possible, and that's how you get graded. And the other half of the group was you only get one photo, but it's got to be as good as possible. And what happened was the people who actually did the most photos had a way better photo than the people that only tried to perfect the one photo. Back to the you get better by doing, and that's the only
Yeah,
way you're actually going to improve is like just you want to be good, you got to just paint because everyone sucks at everything the first time they do it.
absolutely. And I have people all the time, artists all the time saying, I want to find my voice. I want to find my style. How do I do that? And I always say, paint a lot. Just paint a lot.
So third grade, you're probably about 10 years old. You can pick it up again until you're 35 years old. So what's going on in the 25 years there in between? What was part of the journey there?
Yeah, I was on my own at the age of 18, financially on my own at the age of 18. And so I started working and just hustling. And by the time I was 21, actually probably 23, I was running my mother's restaurant solely with my starter husband. And that was a five-star restaurant. And so I really, that taught me a lot about running a business, working with people, customers, customer service. And then later I moved to Fredericksburg and did another entrepreneurial thing where we opened a wine bar back in the early 90s before wine bar. Now you say wine bar and everybody goes, yeah, it's a wine bar. Back then
Yeah, wine bar in
there was
Fredericksburg. How could it not work? It's the wine capital of Texas.
exactly. But back then there were no wineries like that. So we opened a wine bar. We ended up selling that. It was really successful. And then once I started painting, I got a wild hair again to start an organic clothing company with my paintings and designs on the clothing. And within a year, it was picked up by Whole Foods, Nordstrom, Whole Earth, and 60 different boutiques across the US. So I had a lot of these different entrepreneurial experiences at the same time that I was having children. It was quite a busy time, to say the least.
Yeah, very much. You mentioned early on talking about artists and having to figure out the business side of things. Obviously, part of your journey, even before you became an artist, was running your own businesses and being an entrepreneur. What's the best strategy? Again, go back to you just got to jump in and do it, but what's the best strategy for artists to kind of understand and be successful at the business side of being an artist?
Such a good question. There are a lot of things that we can do as artists. The first thing is, I think it's important that because I didn't go to art school and I wasn't telling people early on that I wanted to be an artist, I didn't have people saying to me, you have a plan B, you're going to need to get a real job, good luck being poor, all of those starving artist tropes that are out there. So when that woman came through and asked to start carrying my art, I just started applying all of my business skills to the art business. And I just thought, of course, this is going to work because I've had all of these other successful businesses. So, the first thing that artists can do is they have to realize they can do this. There's going to need some skill sets that are going to come into play, but it is absolutely possible. So, starting with their own mindset is key. The second thing that I always suggest is to realize that 99.9% of the world is never going to see your art in person. So, what can we do to get seen, to get our art seen? There's lots of different things you can do. Number one, social media. Back in, I want to say it was 2015, I was on Instagram posting pictures of my dog, my vacations, highlight reels, that kind of thing that we all do. And then I realized that there are over 1 billion users a month that are on that platform. And I started posting my paintings and the process that I was going through. And between Facebook and Instagram, I started selling my art from there. It blew my mind that this was a free platform. Now there's over 2 billion users per month on social media or Instagram alone. So for artists to be using social media to promote their art is a real missed opportunity for sure. And there's all of these things about, well, the algorithm this, the algorithm that. Just get on it, start doing it, and see what happens. I've had more opportunities come to me through social media than anything else. The other way to get seen is start in your own backyard, meaning create an email list with people that know and love you, that already want to support you. So how do I create an email list? Start with your Christmas card list, start or your holiday list. Start there with your own sphere and start letting people know what you're doing and putting yourself out there. Being visible, both you and your art is really important.
Yeah, like you say, it's funny being in real estate. Obviously, a lot of social media and stuff comes into play there too. And then you hear everyone complaining about the logarithms and how it impacts it. But I heard a good phrase saying that, and replace that word with your audience. It's just your audience. So if, and again, same similar there to being an artist, more than likely your first few posts are going to suck because you haven't posted on social media before. Like, it's rare that someone is so talented that they suddenly can just post something and have it immediately just blow up. And a lot of the times when those things do, it's possibly because they were able to hire people who know how to do it even better and have had some success. But as an artist, you at least have the one huge advantage is that you your stuff is already very visually appealing, which is one of the biggest things that social media is already, is that visual aspect of it. And so it has the opportunity to grab people's attention and draw them in.
Yeah, for sure. And you make a really good point that people can't expect just to post and then sell their art, right? Or just to post once and sell a piece of real estate. Maybe it happens. That's awesome if it does. But there's time where you have to build up that no interest factor, right? I have a course called Art Biz for Rebels people can find on my website. It teaches all of this, and it also teaches artists how to use social media to sell their art, because there are some different skill sets that are actually quite easy, and you don't have to pay anybody to do this for you. In fact, I ran all of my own social media up until 2 years ago and sold a ton of art in the way that I used it. And it's exactly what you're talking about. Is I never think of it as followers, trying to gain followers. I think of it as this person. I think of it just like in my restaurant days. Okay, this person has walked in my door, right? Have come to my page. How can I serve them? What is the best way that I can serve these people? And you just do it one at a time. You just think of it like that. So there's a whole method of doing it. You don't have to pay somebody, at least not initially, until you blow up.
Well, yeah, and even the posts that don't do well, if instead of this being your Instagram page, this was your own gallery that you had in your own city, but it's free now instead of you paying $3,000 a month to rent. But if every potential person that came in just to look, you like hopefully wouldn't be trying to shove paintings down their throat and you got to buy this if you come in here. Like, you would be just thankful that they came in to take a look at your artwork. And so I think that's one of the problems with social media, is we tend to want to just be selling people all the time, and that's not why people go on social media. They're usually going on there to escape a little bit of their daily life, find something entertaining, maybe find something educational. And so the more that you can show some of that behind the scenes stuff or provide value or a way to escape and just let them see a cool piece of artwork, is in building your audience and your reputation.
You're so right. And you said two things. You said in entertain and educate. I always say, if we're going to post something, let's look at three things. Is it going to inspire, entertain, or educate? And that's how you serve them. That's how you serve people. And that's what makes them want to come back and see what else you're up to, what you have to offer.
So I know one of the initiatives that you're very fond of and is coming up here is Art from the Streets. Why don't you maybe tell us a little bit about that and what's going on?
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited about this. So, Art from the Streets, for your listeners who are not aware, Art from the Streets is an organization here in Austin that's been around for 30 years. And in fact, other cities in the US are looking at Art from the Streets to create their own programs. And Art from the Streets serves the unhoused and at risk community. They have an amazing studio space set up at the Canopy on the east side, and they open their doors throughout the week so that the unhoused and the at-risk community have a place to go to create. They provide paints, they provide brushes, they provide just incredible supplies so that the artists can come in and have a safe space to create and to not only create their stuff, but also to sell their art, which that is so exciting because not only do they provide a place for them to sell their art, but they allow the artist to keep 95% of the proceeds, which, as we said earlier, galleries generally take 50. So for the artist to be able to keep 95% is just, it's incredible. And Art from the Streets reached out to me at the end of last year and asked if I could come in and work with their artists because there's a fundraising. Their big fundraising gala is next month, April 12th. And they asked if I could come in and teach the artists once to maybe create a piece that we could auction off for fundraising. But when I saw the incredible work that they're doing and I was able to meet with the artists, I decided I would do 4 different workshops with the artists with the intent of helping the artists really create their best work so that they too can have the benefits of making money doing what they love, just what I teach all over the world, but for these artists. And I think it's important to note that when I started creating art and I saw what it did for my self-worth, it gave me a place to say the things that maybe I wouldn't feel comfortable saying out just into the world. So it gave me, there was a lot of healing that happened through just the art of, just the process of creating art. So it created a space for me to put things. And I think this is really important for people who are struggling, who are going through different life issues, to be able to have a place to put that. Creating art not only contributes to our self-worth, but when we are able to create something we're proud of, and then the community comes out and purchases it, then we can add to our net worth. So it's such a beautiful thing to be able to do. I'm really passionate about Art from the Streets. Yeah. And so we're going to be creating a piece together as the community of artists, and we'll be auctioning off that piece in April.
Nice. So for people who have more interest in that, in the gala or just in the gallery for the art pieces and stuff like that, where's the best place for them to maybe check that out at?
Yeah, their website is artfromthestreets.org. They can also, I know we didn't talk about this, but they can also go to their Instagram. Art from the Streets is their Instagram handle. But you can go to artfromthestreets.org. You can learn more about the organization if you're interested in volunteering, attending the gala, purchasing artwork, all of that. It's just an incredible organization.
Nice. Yeah, no, it sounds like a really cool thing. And obviously anything that can help, again, anytime people can feel better about themselves, it's not only good for that person, but good for the people that they come in contact with. Because unfortunately, obviously talked on social media, and there's a lot of people that don't like social media because of some of the stuff that's on there, but it's just hurt other people, bad comments and stuff like that. Okay, great. Someone doesn't think you're a great artist, but that's usually a reflection on them. And so the more that you can build up the self-worth of people through them accomplishing stuff, that's just going to have a ripple effect on a lot of other areas of life as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's for the people around them. It ends up serving the community as a whole. It's remarkable.
Where are the best places to stay connected with you and see what you're up to and some of the art that you're doing?
Yeah, I also have a podcast. It's called The Honest Art Podcast with Jodie King. Or you could head to my website at jodieking.com. There's an IE. Yeah, JODIEKING.com. Then I also have Instagram, which is my name, Jodie_King_. So I would love to be able to meet you through whatever means, if it's on Instagram or some other way, because I love what I do.
Nice. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and do the podcast today. I know you're on the press junket today as far as getting the word out for the great organization and stuff that you guys got going on.
I am. It's a big day, but I so appreciate being able to talk to you and to your community. I am almost as passionate about Austin as I am about art. So it's an honor to be here.
They're definitely one of those things that, for especially for you, but I think for a lot of people, are one and the same, right? There's just that art, music, and obviously within a week that South by Southwest is going on, that's just kind of part of the fabric of the city.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, again, appreciate you taking the time and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.